Hi guys, this is a very quick video hopefully about the change of ascendant. What happens when we shift town, and what happens when we've been living in a certain place for a while and then we decide to live somewhere else? Well, a whole lot happens. If you've been born in Turkey, for example, but you're living in Amsterdam now, or if you are born in New Zealand and you're living in Australia even, just a small shift can cause a lot of different energies in your chart to shift and change, and houses to completely redefine themselves and recreate themselves anew. So how to understand it? Well, this is very interesting to me at the moment because I've had a lot of interest from people for astrology asking me what to do about the move, if they want to move somewhere, or why is their life not sticking together, or that's because their houses are all over the place with a new position of their life. Now, I'm going to have a very quick look at why this happens and how. Well, the place that you were born is your initial blueprint. It is the very important space in which you were born. It is the very important energy to which you belong. And in a way, it stays with you forever, especially if you lived your first 4 or 5 years in the soil where you were born. Now, if you've been taken from one country to another within the first few months, or like up to a year of your birth, you have no blueprint. You have been acquired into the collective mind as all belonging. So if you've been moved around as a baby from time zone to time zone at a very young age, your chart and the ascendant of your chart doesn't really matter. You can morph it and you can twist it however you want. But specifically the place where you spend the most time in your first 4 or 5 years will form you in a way that is nurturing to your particular energy. So even if you say were born in India and then you were transported to Australia very quickly, you will not vibrate to the Indian ascendant for very long, but it will give you a sort of like a knowledge of your past and a very good understanding of your past experiences on this and other planets, but it will not bring you the very great knowing of you. So if you've got an ascendant, say in Scorpio in India, but you move to Australia very quickly and your ascendant has changed, the Indian ascendant has no place in your life unless or until you go back there for a long time and connect with your roots, which will bring you heaps more understanding and heaps more energy than ever before. Now, if you're like me and you spend the first 10 years in a country, say I've spent my first 10 years in Russia and then moved to, say, New Zealand, I moved to New Zealand, this is a huge change, but the body is yet undeveloped. The adultness has not been kicked in by the age of 12 in the original place of birth. So the blueprints have been required to integrate before the age of 12 fully. So in your first 5 years, you get the overall blueprint of your, I want to say, mana, and how mana comes into your life, how energy comes into your life. You require that to be fully blooming between the ages of 5 and 12. So before 5, you get the understanding of who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing here. But between the ages of 5 and 12, you're really integrated into your adulthood. And if you've been pulled out from one soil into the next realm, by the age of 12, if you have, like, say, I had 2 years between my Russian experience and my New Zealand experience. I had 2 years to fully bloom into, I guess, the beginning of womanhood, the beginning of puberty. If this happens this way, well, that becomes very hard on you because you are integrating the new energy during this time of assimilation into an environment as a child. And before adulthood is when this process really takes place in a huge and wonderful way. So right before adulthood, ages 11 till 12 especially, is when you're really full of knowing, really full of acceleration, and this is where you absorb the most. Now, if you've got a mind that is set on the place where you were born as that which is yours, this is really good because you can actually connect to the country where you've been born to get the codes back, to realign yourself with your truth. If you're somebody who's embarrassed or ashamed of where you were born, if you're somebody who's not really sure about your ethnicity, who's not very sure, or not very wanting to be, say, Russian and living in New Zealand like I was as a child. I didn't want to be associated with the Russian culture and the Russian way of life. That basically means that you're cutting yourself off. If you've got a child that's been born in, say, Iraq, and you immigrated to Australia, you have to give them the wonder of the country. You can't tell them and teach them that where they've come from was a bad place, because their blueprints are really reliant on their homeland in a lot of ways, and their ascendant can get very messy if they don't really feel alive or at home with where they were born. Now, here's the deal. When you change countries, and this is at any age at all, 20, 40, 50, 90, doesn't matter. You change your ascendant, you change your houses. How to find out what happens then? Well, I've got a link below if you'd like that shows you the different time conversions. You know, there is a place on the internet you can go and you can actually see the different time zones and how they convert. Say, you know, what is 4 o'clock in New Zealand, say, in Jamaica, you know? So if you're moving from New Zealand to Jamaica, what is the time difference? What is the hop in your ascendant? What is the change in you that will occur due to your move? And this doesn't matter, you see, if you're going for a week. It doesn't matter if you're going for a lifetime, because every time you're changing time zones, you're changing your life and you are really expanding in some way. Now, I don't know what the time difference is for Jamaica and New Zealand. I'll have to look it up. But for example, for me, I was in Russia, okay? And then I went to New Zealand. So I had to calculate what is the time doing in New Zealand when it is 9 a.m. in Russia, because it's my birth time. So I had to have a look at my ascendant in New Zealand as different to the ascendant in Russia, okay? So how Russia sculpted me. Russia gave me a Scorpio ascendant. It gave me a lot of information very fast. It gave me the otherworldly experiences. It gave me a lot of trauma. Now, when I went to New Zealand, my ascendant hopped to my 5th house, which was in Aries, okay? So what did that give me? It gave me a lot of love. It gave me a lot of lust, and it gave me a lot of excitement. Now, I've got a lot of really negative placements in my 5th house where I am a little bit obsessed with certain things and doing things a certain way. So I've really accumulated a lot of knowledge through obsession and a lot of understanding through the realm of possibility that was in my 5th house. And now, say for example, if you are a 5th house native, so say if you've got a lot of planets in Leo, a lot of planets in your 5th house, you understand what this means. 5th house is about joy of childhood and the joy of getting somewhere, being this small and then eventually wanting to be up here and growing very fast in some ways in order to fill in your own shoes. So it gave me a lot of accelerated growth, but it's cut me off from myself. It cut me off from my power in a lot of ways, and it gave me a lot of knowledge, but it didn't really purify me as a human being. It didn't really stabilize me. Okay, so for example, if you've gone to another country and you became your 10th house ascendant, what does this mean? Have a look at your 10th house, have a look at all the asteroids, have a look at all the different planets and all the different energies there. Why have you decided to be in your 10th house dominance in this new ascendant, in this new place of life? Are you looking at your career? Are you looking to expand? Say, for example, for me in the 5th house, and it's still 5th house because Melbourne and New Zealand are still covering some of my 5th house. It's more 6th house here, but it is mostly the 5th house ascendant still in Australia. Even though I moved, I couldn't run away from my ascendant, you see. So I'm working on my childhood. I'm working on my childhood issues here. If you are, say, in your 10th house ascendant now, are you perhaps looking at your job? Are you looking at your career? Perhaps you are changing things. Say, if you've got Leo in your 10th house, I mean, how are you going? Do you really want to keep going at the job that you're doing? Do you maybe want to change your life? You want to change your lifestyle and you want to be somebody else in your company. Perhaps you're on a holiday where you've got your 10th house, your career house as your ascendant, and you're only there for a few days, but you are birthing something in this time. You're really rebirthing yourself into a whole new paradigm. Now, this is another thing. If you are living somewhere, this is for me. If you're living somewhere and you really want to move, but you feel like you've got feet of stone, you feel like you can't move, And especially if you're not native to where you are. So you've lived in India and then you moved to Australia, or even Sri Lanka, just anywhere you moved and you changed time zones, and you're sitting there and you're waiting for a change, and you're thinking, I would actually really like to live in New York, but nah, that's too far away. I would actually really like to live in Los Angeles, but no, that's too far away. If you are here and you feel there is something moving inside you, this is for me, that is pushing you towards the greater change and the greater depth that you feel you can only find through this other location, go with it. Why? Have a look at your chart. Have a look at the time zone difference between where you are now, say where you were born, where you are now, and where you want to go. Have a look at the time difference. Generate the chart. There's lots of free different internet websites. They'll help you. It's all free. It doesn't cost a lot. If you want, you can see me and I can help you understand this as well. Have a look at what you're gaining and why you're drawn to a certain place. For example, if you're somebody who's always wanted to go to Paris and you don't know why, somebody who's always wanted to go to Barcelona, you don't know why, have a look at the time difference between your ascendant and that place and why you're drawn to it. Perhaps it activates your 7th house of marriage. Perhaps it activates your 3rd house of self-expression. But if you got itchy feet and you really got to go somewhere, have a look at what that place offers you. And another last thing, if you are somewhere and you feel stuck, okay, you feel really stuck and you don't know how to transcend it. Doesn't matter if you were born here, you're here temporarily, and you want to go and you want to move, but there's something in you that is stuck, or you, for example, go somewhere else and you try a career on the other side of the world and it doesn't work and you come back again. You try a life elsewhere, you meet somebody online, you go and meet them. Oh, there's another thing I should mention actually. You go and meet them and then you come back again to square one. What is it in your current environment, in your first house, in the space and time where you're living at the moment, that's not being able to be transcended? For example, for me, because I've got a 5th house ascendant now in Australia, I have to have a look at why. Why I can't say move to Bali or start a new life in Europe yet. Well, it's because my 1st house ascendant is telling me I need to grow up and I need to really feel responsible. I need to transcend a lot of my childishness and a lot of my innocence and instability. My Pluto, because Pluto rules the 5th house. The Sun traditionally rules the 5th house, but I feel that it's Pluto. Pluto, the planet of recognition. I want to get recognition here, but you see, I've got Aries here. So the more I push, the more I'm pushed back. So I have to find recognition within myself and grow up within myself very fast in order to move on to the next place. So without further ado, another thing I'd like to touch on, it's going to be the last thing. Internet dating, everybody. Internet dating and allowing each other to love each other online. Okay, allowing each other to fall in love online. What are you doing when this happens? Well, when this happens, you are touching ether. You are really loving somebody on the other side of the world, especially. If they're very far from your time zone, you are really falling in love with a person who's not real. Why? Because their ascendant there is going to change if they come over and see you. Their focus of life is going to change. Your focus of life is going to change if you're going to meet them. Even if you meet halfway, there is a huge chance it won't work out. Now, why do internet marriages work sometimes? Well, this is really quite amazing because sometimes it's just fate. Sometimes it's just in your charts that you will meet somebody in the 12th house. You'll meet somebody in the 9th house or the 3rd house. It is just there. And sometimes you've got probably different asteroids and different planetary aspects that are really compatible. No matter how you turn it, whatever your chart vibrates to, you will have compatibility, and that is fine. But most of all, these things don't last, or they don't really have really good standing unless you meet. So if you are somebody at the moment looking into the ether for that playmate, and we are still in Gemini at the moment, if you're looking for your twin, and if you're looking online, and if you're just judging by people's energy through what they're expressing on Facebook or what they're expressing on Skype, you can't really get the right energy through, or you can't really get the right energy collaboration there, because you are in love with the ethereal world, because they're so far away, there may as well be a fantasy, okay? And until you meet in person, you can't really tell. And another thing, this is going to be very funny. I'm going to chart up your life each time I do a reading for you now. So every time you approach me for a reading, it would be very nice to know where you've been and where you are and where you may be thinking about going, because I would actually like to make it known to everybody that the ascendant completely changes depending on where you're vibrating to. And in my readings in the past, I haven't done this a lot, but it's been asked from me increasingly to look at people's different locations and how we're all morphing and merging into each other through the interaction through ether realms like the internet, through the interaction in the astral, you know. So why do I want to do this for everyone pretty much who asks me for a reading these days, is that it really attracts into your life a new type of home, a new type of environment, and a new type of identity, when we really can see that the world has no boundaries and the world has no meaning, and all of these time zones can really affect us, but at the same time they can really smudge themselves too for us. You know, we can really turn this world around. You know, the ability of, say, being born in Jamaica and then migrating to South Africa is really incredible. You know, it's really amazing what we can do these days, and we're really learning as part of our evolution to completely dissolve timelines, completely dissolve our old ancestral marriage game, you know, and what will it bring us eventually? And I kind of feel like I'm on the brink of some great discovery as to why we have come to this place where we are an ability to cross timelines so fast and so vastly. And it just brings me to the attention that me and myself has no meaning. Me and myself, how I identify, has no meaning. So the first house is shiftable. All of our houses are shiftable. And what does this mean for the greater collective astrology? What does it mean if suddenly my second house can become my last, or if my third house can suddenly vibrate as my seventh house? You know, what does this mean? Well, it just means that the house system is a little bit outdated. It is very good and it is very pure as part of our nurture and our makeup, and seeing the history of our parents and the history of our heritage and the history of our race, you know. But it is going to be very outdated soon, and the house system is not going to bother us anymore. As we are going to be more in tune with the celestial realms, we will not need any kind of direct house system in the future. So yeah, perhaps I will not be working with houses any longer, just to recognize that psychic ability is enough to pick up everything already. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and if you'd like a reading or some kind of a nurturing advice or a Skype session, I am available, and I've been very busy with this stuff lately, and at the moment I've got quite a lot of time to commit to this. Next few weeks I'm going to have another shift, and I'm going to go back into writing and making that my first priority. But if you've got time and if you've got the need, I would love to see you. Thank you very much.